Bell ringing time. It is 7:30 and I like to start on time. And you know, I forgot to ask Louise to send it out to the email list. Thank goodness. We have a full house. This is great. And I'm not surprised because we have two favorite members here this evening, and I'm delighted there's so many people here to support them. Are you ready for me to begin, or have I begun?
You've begun.
All right, all right. Welcome to the Germanic Genealogy Group. We meet monthly from September through May, except in December. You're always welcome to come and attend the meetings. We try to have meetings that are programs that are focused on the genealogy, the family. This particular meeting we've been holding about 7 or 8 years, and it is to focus on the community culture that people came from. Our members that were born in Germany are in Europe, and not all Germans were born in Germany. That is one of the main things I have learned being at the club. We want to know about their community, about their families, and about their background, and why they came here and how the adjustment was. So we have two members who are going to be presenting tonight. Before I introduce them, I just want to invite you to come back next month, whatever the third Monday in February is. It may be the 16th, but don't hold me to that.
15th.
What day?
15th.
15th. We will meet here, and that is a meeting we've been holding for about 5 years, and that is on German geography, because many members here were not born in Europe. We know where Berlin is, we know where Munich is, but we're not real sure about a lot of the other places. So this is one where we try to focus on an area and learn more about it. We do this by inviting the University of Delaware exchange students from Germany to come and share with us where they are from. This year we have two young men. One is from the Black Forest and the other is from Munich. We've heard about Munich before, but he's going to focus on Munich as the town. He's very excited, and that'll be fun. I also have a friend who is from Luxembourg, actually, but that is right next to Sauerland. Correct me if I'm saying it incorrectly. There's a couple places back here, Max and Eleanor, over here. And so Anne Frieden is going to be talking about Sauerland and the things that you might find in that area of Germany. That's next month.
One thing Lloyd left out, if you have a cell phone with you, please turn it off. If somebody was back in the corner and snapped their fingers, this camera will pick it up. So please, turn your cell phones off.
You know, I'm going to do the same thing, because I think mine's at high volume. Yep, it is. Nobody ever calls me, but they would tonight. The other thing is that we do like to record this session. This is the history of the club members, and so we record these. We keep all of these recordings on our computer, so if you ever want to visit any of our members who have told their stories, we can make that happen for you. But in doing so, we need to make sure that private conversations go on out there, and that hopefully the bar isn't getting too noisy. If it does, I'll go out there and ask them to calm it down, because
Close the door, too.
and we need to close the door. And I'll turn off the heat, because it's going to be plenty warm enough in here. So please listen attentively, which also means that the speakers need to speak up, because we don't have microphones. So Lisa, wherever you are, when it's your turn, as loudly as you can, project to the back wall. Okay. Tonight, our first speaker is Andre Leinig. He is from near Hamburg, Hanover. Sorry, me. No, I'm talking about Andre.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Lisa.
Yeah. Andre is from near Hanover. He will tell us about that and show us on the map and tell us his story. And then I'll introduce our second speaker. But Andre, you are on.
It's close by to Hanover. It's a capital from Lower Niedersachsen. was born in September 5th to 1963 in Bückeburg. It's a small town in Lower Niedersachsen. After I was born, we moved to the next state, right over the border, North Rhine-Westfalica, into a new apartment complex. There was a big playground in front of the house. My father was a cop, and he was born in Breslau, 1934. They had to leave their country in 1946 and arrived in Bavaria and ended up close where I was born. My mom was born in Eversen. It's the next town over. And we lived there till we moved up to Minden. My brother was born two years later. And in the meantime, I remember the first car we had, a green Isetta. The door opened to the front. After that, we had a green Beetle with a small window in the back.
Andre, could you show us on the map those places you mentioned?
It's right. Hagen, here's Bückeburg, and the little towns next to it, right by the border. They're close by. They're right here. To Minden is like 6 miles, Bückeburg 6 miles, and 30 miles to Hanover. It's, Autobahn is like almost nothing. In the meantime, my parents bought property in Bärenbusch, but it's in Lower Niedersachsen. We planted trees and had a garden till we built a house in 1970. My first school day came, and after 1 year, we switched to the same school my mother went to school. I still had the same teachers than she had. I remember the beaten for disciplinarium from the teacher. After 4th grade, we went into the new complex next door. There was no school bus. We went by bike every day, 1.5 miles, rain or shine. The streets are very small and no side or bike walks. On the way home, we stopped at apple trees or went to the convenience store, we called it Emmerladen, to pick up a snack. After lunch and doing my homework, we did bike rides to the country, to the woods, and elsewhere else, whatever we wanted to do. But we had to be home when the sun went down. I remember that. We get locked out a couple of times. The next bigger town were Bückeburg and Minden, each 6 miles away. In the summer we went to the Bergbad, it's like a community pool, or on Sundays to the movies. Later we went to the Baggersee, it's like a lake, homemade lake, where we swam or ice skate in the winter. We lived close to the Mittelland Canal, who started from Minden and went all the way to Berlin. In the summer we took family trips by bike down the canal or to the nearest forest. 1974 my sister was born and the fun was over. We had to push the Kinderwagen. I remember that. I was mad. It was a hot summer. We did tile work on our balcony. The average every 4 years is a nice, very hot summer in Germany. On vacation, the first year, we went camping to Bavaria and Italy, and later a bus trip to Yugoslavia. After I got my driver's license, I went on vacation with my friends to France. My grandparents lived in the next village over. I like to go there. They raised their own pig, what they slaughtered in their fall. I helped stir the blood and in the garden pick cherries and apples. When I ask question about World War II, she opens up and talked about it. They lived close to the railroad track, and airplanes shot the trains and bullet hit the window. Or they snitched sugar and flour and slide down the chute at the abandoned army warehouse next to the canal. She still had the bag with the SWAT sticker hanging in the basement on the door. In 1976, my uncle from the States, my mom's brother, came over from Delaware. He offered me a job after school in plumbing apprenticeship. I looked into it and started August 1980, my apprenticeship. After 3.5 years, I finished and was laid off. There was not enough work in the winter time. April 1st, I did my mandatory service in the German army for 15 months. After service, I worked 2 years in a glass factory. The money was great, but it was a dirty job. My next vacation, I planned to go to the US to visit my uncle and check out the land. We always had relatives came to the States and stayed here. First in the 1960s to Chicago, and 1920s they went to Florida, and 1959 my uncle moved to Delaware and stayed and died here. We spent a week in Delaware and we bought a car and started off to Key West. From there to Salt Lake City, where I flew back to Delaware. After returning from the US, I planned to work and cross the country next year. After quitting my job, I worked for my uncle in the plumbing business. It was a hot summer in 1988. One Saturday night out with a co-worker, I met my wife. She worked in a restaurant and she was ready to visit her girlfriend in Stuttgart. After returning from my round trip, we hooked up and got married. After 1.5 years, we moved back to Germany. In between, the wall came down. There was no apartments or cars to rent or buy. I went back in doing plumbing business, and I worked in East Germany for a while. We bought an old farmhouse out in the country and renovated it from the bottom up. I still made enough money that my wife could stay home and raise the kids. When September came, we went to the Oktoberfest and we had a good time. In 1999, we decided going back to the States, where we live now. That's it.
Now, you may ask Andre questions if you would like. I have a few, but I'm sure others do too.
The mandatory service, is that 15 months or longer?
It was first, it started with 24, then went down to 18, 15 months, 12, and now it's gone.
10, but then it was 10.
10. Now it's not anymore But it was a nice time, and everybody should do it. I mean, it didn't hurt anybody. We had a good time. We traveled the country and learned to make beds and clean the room. It was nice. The money was sucks. It's the only bad thing. But
Were you assured of getting a job back, or did you interrupt a job to do the service and then come back after
no,
the service?
no. I applied before, but nobody want to hire me. They know I could, every day they could pull me out and say, hey, you have to do your 15 months. And so I did it by myself. And I was 2 months laid off. It was perfect. A little break, and then when I came back, I started
Start over.
Start again for 2 years. It was a plumbing business for the 2 years, but the money was good. And then went back there.
Are there more jobs in that area in plumbing in Germany than there are here?
Nobody wants to get his hands anymore dirty. They have a hard time to fill the apprenticeships. Everybody goes to college. The government but pays for it. The school is free. They give them school money. They barely have to pay it back, and there's barely anybody want to get in the business anymore. Gets their hands dirty. And we had when we started, 28 to 32 people in one class. Now they got 12 people for first and second year.
Yeah.
It's almost. My nephew right now, it's in the same. He's done learning plumbing, and he learned plumbing in the same company where I learned my trade.
Apprenticeship required for a certain length of time?
Yes. If you are good enough, you can. If you show a lot of effort and you're good, you're good in everything. You can shorten it by a half year or a year sometimes. But in the winter time, it's always a bad time. Construction is not going on, and there was not enough work. So they laid me off, and it was fine.
What brought your uncle to Delaware?
There was no TV. When he grew up, they went to the movies and they showed America. And he watched the show from America. It was fascinating. And then he had to find a sponsor. The sponsor came from Delaware. That's why he came to Delaware.
What year was that?
1959. He was just done doing plumbing too, and worked a year for Milita in Minden. And he said, I don't want to get old here.
Was that Otto?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the year I was born, in Germany.
Yeah.
Where did you and Joyce live in Germany? Near your hometown?
What do you mean, enjoy?
Yeah.
I don't like the cities. I like it more in a village, quiet time. It's perfect. And where we lived, we could do everything by bike. The forest, getting food, butcher, the banks, everything was around in 5 minutes. And once a week we went in a bigger town, got the rest, we're fine.
I have a question. I believe you said you had relatives that were from Breslau.
Yes.
Did you say? Have you ever visited the city since it's now in Poland?
I didn't, but my father did, my mother and my brother, they did.
Do you recall their impression of the changes, or what it was like when
They
they
lived
visited?
outside, they stayed there, but everything was updated. It was not in a bad shape. They stayed in a hotel there, they didn't complain.
Okay.
And the house was in a good shape where they went. His father built it by hand, and it was still there.
Your English is quite good. Did you learn it here on the rough, or?
I learned it here. I had to teach. That's why I said I started a teacher from World War II, and if you didn't do anything right, he grabbed you on your ears and you were out the door. I remember that. I said, jeez. I had him for a couple of years and I didn't learn anything. And wherever you go in Germany, everybody speaks German. In Spain, and that's why I didn't.
German and English. You mean English?
No, they speak German all over. A lot of people work in Germany and then they go back. And Germany was, I mean, I kicked myself in the butt that I didn't keep up with it, but when I came over here, I didn't speak English, any English.
So were your children raised speaking German? Children?
They was born in Germany and they were speaking German. My wife asked them something in English and they spoke back in German. But now they're embarrassed. They understand German, but they're embarrassed to speak it. Yeah, but they're missing on some good second language, and you always can use it.
Exactly.
They're born with it.
Have you ever asked them why they're embarrassed?
It's different.
Their
It can't be
girlfriends,
different.
they don't want it. The girlfriends, when they come over, they want that I speak. They like the language. It's a different accent, and they love it when I speak. But they are always embarrassed. They stopped talking. But it's almost everywhere. If you don't keep up, we try to keep up with it, but it was like an aggravation. We went to vacation and say, today we speak just German, but it was like pulling teeth.
Well, thank you very much, Andre. We appreciate your time and your effort to put this together. And what we'll do is we'll take a couple of minutes pause. We'll let Andre relax and Lisa get give us a technical moment. Make sure this All right, we are second part, and I am very aware that we do not have a speaker in here. Sorry about that. We do have speakers out in the big hall, and if I'd known we'd had such a large group, we might have been out in the big hall. But listen as best you can. Lisa will project her voice as best she can, and ask questions. You know, raise your hand and ask her to repeat something if you need to. She'll be fine with that. This is Lisa Fischer. Lisa has been a member for a very long time.
Almost 25 years.
25 years. Okay, so she's
22, I think, yeah.
yeah. So she has an interesting story to tell, and I will let her tell the story. Lisa.
Now, I went down the generations as far as I could because we had some papers we saved in the war, but a lot of them got destroyed. I'm Lisa Fischer. My maiden name is Elizabeth Baranovsky, which this is the Baranovsky. Originally, from what I learned from my grandfather, is that there was a German baron or baron that came over here like in the 1700. In that time, Germany was selling land to them, very reasonable. Poland. Poland was actually the breadbasket of Germany. They have this good ground, and it grows very, very well. And he apparently bought about 720 hectares, which is... well, in any case, and they still have the farm. Their offspring, my father's offspring, still has the farm. Anyway, okay, so Baranovsky, my...
Lisa?
Yes. Okay, this is what you see here. My uncle, he was Ludwig von Baran. They changed it from Baron to Baran because Poland was constantly changed in different... Okay, no, 320 hectares, which is 720 acres land. The offspring still owns it. And this is in Germany, Winterdorf, which is Winter Town in English. And they still the same place. And that was my great-great-grandfather. Now in 1845, Ludwig, the son of Jan Baron, on the very right, and he lived till 1945 or something like that. Let me see. He 18. Yeah, he lived till 18. No, Wojciech actually lived till 1910. Okay, so now back to the Jan's son, Wojciech, which is my grandfather. And my father Ludwig was born. There were several Ludwigs. And my grandfather Ludwig was, they had 6 children, one of them was my father. In 1936, Ludwig married my mother, Blanca Valeria Meyer. They had 7 children. And they had 7 children, and I was the 3rd one in line, Elizabeth. In 1957, I married an American soldier. No, okay, meanwhile, we went from Poland when the war was over. We left Poland, and we had to, because there's a uniform my father wears, which was a German, Hakenkreuz. So anyway, somehow he wore his hat, and a Russian found him and took him into prison. And my mother took us 5 children then and went to Berlin. We walked. When you see all the people walking, hundreds of them in the movies, in the old movies, well, we were part of them. I was 7 then, going on 8. And I remember pushing something, and my brother was pushing his roller, and mother hung an iron on there, whatever you could carry, And we ended up on a Viehwagen, which is a box train, because there were no trains. And I remember we were all laying on the ground, totally full. Anyway, so you had to climb over in order to go into a big part. You had to go. So finally we ended up in Berlin. Berlin was totally leveled. Berlin from Posen is roughly, I say, 100 miles, roughly. So it's not very far. And the English built us those huts. They were like chicken coops, but hundreds of meters long. And here we all got 10 by 10. The English divided it with a white curtain like in a hospital, and we were hundreds of us living there. My mother had 5 children. She was alone because my father was in prison with the Russian. And so we stayed there 1 whole year. The English were very good. They had, did the best they could, because like I said, Berlin was totally leveled, so was Germany. And outside they had this big soup pot. So we all came with it. They gave us those army dishes. And in the morning we got a cereal. Then we had to go. We had a fountain outside with 7 spigots, roughly 7 or 8 spigots. We washed ourselves and whatever you could wash. And lunchtime we had some kind of soup, vegetable soup, and then dinner again. Every time we had to, of course, wash the pot. And then we went to sleep in the... I remember one time I went outside and it was pouring, and my legs were in mud. Below my knee. I could just about walk through the mud. I mean, we were a lot of children, hundreds of children there in this lager in Berlin. All right, after a year, my father finally... meanwhile, my father, after half a year, in the prison, he worked as a gardener,
Landscaper? A landscaper?
Not landscaper, but What is a gardener in English?
Gardener.
A gardener. Because he grew up under, they had this big farm, and he grew up there, so he knew all about it. And about a half a year later, there comes this big row of hundreds of orphan children. And the man he worked with was really nice, real good. He was the main gardener. And he says, Ludwig, come on. They dug a hole underneath the fence. And my father crawled through it and went with the kids. Luckily he got away with it because there was only like every 100 or 200 feet was a grown-up to guide them to Berlin, out of there.
This was in the English sector?
That was in Posen still.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, he was still in Posen, but I was already in Berlin. So then this one Sunday, we come back from church, my mom and I open up the curtain, there's my father standing. And he goes to me. And he was all dressed, he still picked up some clothes from our old house that we had. A beautiful anorak, I remember seeing him in with little brocade gold, and they wore just fancy anoraks in the morning or evening. And he just, so of course I got the message, I went out. And then my mom was still talking to some ladies back there. I guess they were crying to each other. Then she opens up the curtain. You should have heard her. Ludwig. She thought he maybe never comes back. So this was a happy event, very happy. And then he worked, of course, wherever he could. And then we found a job in Schleswig-Holstein. We finally found a place we could live in, which was only their big bedroom. Schleswig-Holstein had a lot of farms, and farmers lived in elaborate big houses. And the bedroom was probably from here to there, so my mama divided that, and she worked. She helped them in the cooking and all that. That's the only way you could live there. And my father helped them in the farm, and we were there 3 whole years. Then my father found a job in the coal mine because he wouldn't get paid from the farmers. You practically worked for nothing, just they gave you food and maybe a little pocket money. So he looks in the newspaper and it says the coal mine is looking for coal miners, which is in Herne, near Düsseldorf area. And so he said to my mom, let me go there and start working, and then I call you. We stayed another year in Schleswig-Holstein, and then we came to my father meet. And he said, I found a nice place, So we get over there with, we had to hire a truck just to carry our goods. And in Herne, they made a canal, an artificial canal, and then when the war came, they built bunkers on top of the mountain that they dug out for the canal. They made a bunker for the for the German soldiers. And we get there, and Mama says, "Where's the house?" Because he says, "Oh, it has a a nice place," and the bunker was our place. There were little windows. My mom cries. She said, "Where are the windows?" So later on, Daddy actually cut through that big wall, the bunker wall, and a hole, and built her a window. Oh, wow. And we were there for 3 years. So, like I said, meanwhile he was working. Okay. No, let's see. Yeah, that's already in the. I guess that was in Wanne-Eickel, Recklinghausen. And then he found another job. Oh no, he stayed in a coal mine for 13 years, and then he got black lung and passed away. Passed away with the age of 57. So okay, so that's on my father's side. But then I also wrote my history when I came here. I met my first husband, Joseph St. Gary. Going to change it to Joseph St. Gary, see that?
We're not there yet.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, by the way, this is my father here. And this is my great-great-grandfather. his father was von Baran, and then they had to change it to Baranowski, because Poland was constantly changing names and this and this and this. So that's, but look at the resemblance. That was his grandfather. Look at the resemblance between my great-grandfather and my father. Luckily, I found that picture when my mom gave us some pictures before she passed away. She still had. Okay, so then I'm writing here that I went, okay, when we turned 18, we were allowed to leave. It was 18, and my sister, the year before, my sister was sent to Bad Nauheim from the nuns. We belong to the German Church of Recklinghausen, which is near Düsseldorf. It's about an hour from Düsseldorf area. And she sent her to Bad Nauheim. Everybody knows Bad Nauheim. When my sister came home, she was bragging about the American soldiers. Oh, they're so handsome, their uniform. So anyway, so she said when she's 18, she's going to go. And she did. And then a following year, I turned 18, so I followed her to Hanau, that's where she worked. And I took closer. And so we both worked there for a while, and then we met. She met her husband, I met my husband, Jose and Gary, which is my daughter's father. We were married 11 years, and then suddenly he just, we got a divorce, and 3 years later I met George Fischer. And most of you know my husband, George Fischer. And so this is my history. Now, if you don't mind, I have one more history for my grandmother.
No, we're doing the pictures, remember?
What's that?
We're doing the pictures.
Oh, we're doing the pictures. Oh, okay, sure. Okay, this is my father's wedding. This is the barn. They had so many people that took pictures. So that's his father and his mom. Okay, now they had a lot of acreage. I told you about how many acreage they had, 360. But they owned a prize bowl, so the farmers would bring their cows in there, and and there was the field in the field. They had a lot of employees too. And here my 2 aunts and my uncle, I guess they must have bought a new blower. There must have been in the early 1930s or so, because you can see how proud they are. And they had a lot of beehives, because they had so much land that grew. Matter of fact, in the Polish, in Posen, the dictionary, it says that Baranowski brought the best vegetables and the best fruits to Posen. Ziemia is only about 15-20 minutes from Posen. It's a dorf, it's a farm, land. And this is from my father's farm. My mother, Valeria Szukalski, she met my father in one of those. In Posen, they had this dancing place, and that's where she met my father. Okay, there's my mother and father, and they're getting engaged here. My mother, my father, and her sister, and I guess this one here, my mother, my father, my grandfather, and my uncle. I don't know what that is, where they came from, but it was one of the nice pictures. See, we didn't have much pictures left because we lost a lot in the war. Okay, now there on the left side that's me, and on the right side is my sister Ursula. And when the war came, actually when we packed everything up, we didn't get her doll, and we were already ready to leave, and she was crying, "I want my doll, I want my doll." So Mama ran up and got her doll, and would you believe she still had her doll today? She was, unfortunately, she passed away last July. She was a year and a half older than I am. And there's my mother. I'm the one on the left, and I'm on the knee. My mother knee, and my sister Ursula. And this is our we had a governess that always took care of us. By then we were 5, so she took care of us. My sister Ursula, I, and my sister Rosie, she lives in Vineland, New Jersey. Okay, now here's my father. He has a German uniform on, but we were eating carrots, my brother and I don't remember, but you can tell we already were stressed out because look at the black circles we all have. I have my mother. So anyway, this is my father in the German uniform, and that's when the Russians saw him with the German uniform, of course. That's when they, luckily he came back. Luckily he wasn't lost in Siberia or someplace. Okay, I married Jose and Gary. Pictures are kind of funny, the faces are squashed.
Yes, they are.
And my husband Jose and Gary, and I, and there's my son Raymond, and there's Stephanie. And okay, now here, my sister's son, and that's her other son, my son in the center, Stephanie on the right, and my sister's Rosalie daughter is on the left side. She just passed away last year. She was only 50. She had a disease from her father. The Swedish have this disease where your nerves die and your nerves and muscles. So at the end she just swelled up. But anyway, and then her father actually, I have a picture of him. My sister Rosie has Lisa and her son Frankie, and he's in a uniform here someplace. Oh, okay, and oh yeah, this is a whole family picture here. What lives in South Jersey, New Jersey. My husband is on the left. Okay, those people came from Germany. My niece and her husband, and there is her daughter in the orange, and her son is the second one from the left. They came for a couple of weeks and enjoyed America. They traveled all the way to upstate New York, etc. Okay, now this is my son, and this is his daughter, and now this is when he was younger, so yes, when he was about to be from high school, and that's her son, his son. And here's my daughter, and my brother-in-law John,
Son-in-law.
and Shayla.
Son-in-law.
My son-in-law, I'm sorry, thank you. Son-in-law. So this is pretty much my history and my father's history. Now the other one is from my grandmother Szukalski. The reason why I'm bringing them up because they were pretty famous in Poland too. The Szukalski family in 1810.
Turn this way.
I'm sorry, 1810. The Szukalskis. My uncle's name. I guess my mother's family, it must be my uncle, great uncle. He met Amelia von Thon and marries her. Of course, she was disowned from her family because she married a non-aristocrat. Now they had several children, but they couldn't find them. My grandmother had this, and most of it she lost in a fire because my grandmother and grandfather lost their house in a fire. He was German, my grandfather. He was then in Posen, the conductor and first violinist in the Posener Oper. And so their house, like the little villa, was totally destroyed. But they remembered, of course, a lot of it. And okay, so now. Okay, now they lived in Posen, and then in 1842, her son Valentine is a Studierprofessor, which is a professor, and he worked for from Grafen, which is Earl in English, I guess. He was the teacher for the Grafen, for the Earl
Count.
children, huh?
A count.
Count? So what is a count? And Graf is in count?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, why somebody told me it's an earl? No, okay. Let's see now. He was a private teacher there and for the count's children. And the count invited him. The count is, let me see now, private.
We fought a war to get rid of counts and barons and all those kind of guys.
I know, no, I'm just looking for his name, Count Katarina, okay, Grafen Milzinski. He was from Posen. Okay, now, and they had a ball, so he invites my uncle. And of course he went to the ball. And then he meets Katarina from Nowicki, another one. Of course the Grafen, you know, the count, he had us all the royalty running around it. So anyway, so he meets her and they get married. And of course she is again ausgewiesen, she's again shunned. And because she's married a non-aristocrat. In those days, it didn't matter if you had brains and you were intelligent and had a good vocation. It didn't matter, you know. It had to be the. Okay, now this is my Oma's mother, my mother's mother's mother, and that's a. Now they fall in love. It was love on first sight, and Sister Amelia was married to the later on Polish president from the blue-blooded Amelia, and so on. But I'm going to skip all that. Okay, they get married in 18. Okay, meanwhile, a sister and a brother immigrate to America. Schwester Rosalie and brother Michael go to America in 1865. In South Bend, Indiana, USA. Now Arno was nice enough and looked it up on the internet, and yes, he found my uncle Shukalski in Wisconsin area, and he had children there. I want to continue the Shukalski history from Wisconsin because it was very briefly, but he found it, so that made me happy. So I know that this all actually really happened. All right. So. Oh yeah, her mother, going back to Katarina, they own two towns, and the town is Nowa Luba and Stara Lubin, which means New Lubin and Old Lubin. Now we know of Lubin in Poland, I don't know, and they own the two towns and two large estates. So those are the blue-blooded here. my blood is red too every time I get cut. Anyway, so. Now, Katarina and Valentin get married and have 9 children, and one of them is my grandmother, Valerie. And they also had 2 sons that became prelat, which is in English it is somebody looked it up, senior bishop. Now one of them got taken to Dachau, to Hitler's side, because he helped the Jewish people, and he never came back. And the other uncle, now they built him a monument, the one that never came back from Dachau. And the other uncle, he went to, he also was honored by rebuilding the church in 1949 that got bombed during the war in 1945. So they also honored him with that. In 1888, my grandmother, 9 children, my grandmother was born here, yeah. And they live in Poland, and then she met my grandfather in 1912. She met my grandfather, Arthur Meyer, and he was on the Oper. In that time, it was German anyway. Poland was German, and she met him in Posen, and they proposed, and that's how my mom They had 10 children, my mom was the first one. And so that's it. My
Good job, lady.
But my grandfather became very famous. His father, I don't want to bore you, but real fast, I forgot one page. His father was already a music director. So when my grandfather was born, Arthur Meyer, that's Arthur Meyer's right, he already started teaching him at the age of 5. And my grandfather became a first violinist and later on a conductor. He went to the academy in Berlin, the König Academy in Berlin, and the teacher that taught my grandfather, later on he organized the Berliner Philharmoniker, his teacher. So, and my grandfather worked all over the world. He went to Vienna he was called as guest. My grandfather had an orchestra of 120 men, and he was called as a guest to Dresden. Wait a minute. He worked first in the Dresden Opera House, and then later on he was invited to Berlin, Milan, Paris, Normandy, and also as a guest conductor to Vienna, Graz, Magdeburg, Weimar, and Jena. Now my mother was born in Jena, so that was in between, I guess. Okay? Wonderful. Thank you.
Lisa?